Is religion a mental illness? That's a question you often hear in online debates, podcasts, and social media arguments. Some atheists, especially those influenced by what's called the New Atheist movement, like to say that believing in God is no different than believing in imaginary friends, or that religion is a kind of psychological defect that humanity needs to grow out of. It's a bold claim. But does it hold up when we actually think it through? Let's begin with what it would mean to call religion a mental illness. A mental illness, according to psychology and psychiatry, is a diagnosable condition that interferes with a person's daily functioning. It affects emotions, thoughts, or behavior in a way that is distressing, harmful, or dysfunctional. Conditions like depression, schizophrenia, anxiety disorders, and bipolar disorder are classified as mental illnesses because they cause suffering and make it harder for people to live normal lives. So, does religious belief really meet that definition? The pages are filled with meaningful words, written in perfect order, forming clear and powerful ideas. The universe is far more complex than any book. It's governed by precise laws of physics, chemistry, biology, that hold everywhere and all the time. Why does the universe operate according to these laws? Why is it intelligible? Why can we understand it through math and reason? Disagreeing with someone's worldview doesn't make them delusional. If that were the case, every political disagreement would be a psychiatric crisis. Would you say that book came into existence randomly? That ink just spilled onto paper over millions of years and produced Shakespeare. But even if that were true, it wouldn't mean it's false. The idea that religion is a mental illness often isn't based on science. It's usually just an emotional reaction. People are angry at religion. Maybe they grew up with bad religious experiences. He says the big questions in life, like why am I here? What is the purpose of life? What happens when I die? Islam doesn't ask you to abandon your mind. It asks you to use it fully. Religion gives people a sense of community, direction, and discipline. Muslims established some of the earliest hospitals and centers of learning in Baghdad, Cairo, and Andalusia. These were not people suffering from delusion. They were pioneers of science, medicine, and philosophy, driven by faith. For example, Freud argued that religion is just wish fulfillment, a projection of the father figure. The belief that death is just the end and there's nothing to worry about, that can be comforting too. So comfort doesn't determine truth, but that theory has been widely criticized. Just because a belief is comforting doesn't make it false. But that's a category mistake. Millions of people pray, meditate, or worship and feel deeply connected and grounded. Stalin, Mao, and Pol Pot were atheists, and they were responsible for some of the worst human rights atrocities in history. This doesn't mean atheism is a mental illness. It means any idea can be corrupted when it's combined with power, fear, and hate. It doesn't meet the definition. It's not classified as such, and in many cases, it's associated with better mental and social outcomes. Belief in God is not delusional. It's often grounded in reason, reflection, and a search for meaning that science alone cannot provide. Are you open to understanding another perspective? For many of us, it's where reason truly begins. Religion has inspired some of the greatest achievements in human history. And for billions of people today, it continues to offer peace, direction, and dignity. These are not random chemical reactions. They are structured, repeatable, meaningful experiences that often lead to lasting positive changes. That's called the genetic fallacy, rejecting a belief because of how it originated, not whether it's true. It motivates charity, forgiveness, and resilience. It shuts down conversation instead of opening it. It mocks instead of understanding. And in the end, it says more about the person making the claim than the belief they're criticizing. Even atheists benefit from the moral foundations that religion has given to society, whether they admit it or not. Can't be answered by science alone. Science tells us the how, but not the why. That's where religion steps in. Why call it that when directed toward the creator of sunsets? Not to suppress reason, but to complete it. Maybe they associate religion with conflict, control, or hypocrisy. Those are real experiences, and they deserve empathy. But bad religion is not the same as no religion. A corrupt doctor doesn't disprove medicine. A fake charity doesn't disprove generosity. Religion must be judged by its best representatives, not its worst. Hunger is also a survival mechanism. So is our desire for meaning, love, and truth. It's about using reason, reflection, and evidence. The Quran constantly challenges people to think. It says, do they not reflect upon themselves? And do they not look at the sky and how it was raised? The Quran appeals to the intellect, to the design of the universe, the harmony of creation, the moral nature of human beings. It doesn't ask you to believe because of tradition, or pressure, or fear. It invites you to reason. Just because something is natural doesn't make it wrong or irrational. That's not a delusion. That's a philosophical conclusion that has been held by the greatest minds in history, from Plato and Aristotle to Newton, Einstein, and yes, even modern scientists and philosophers today. Or would you assume there was an author? From the ancient Egyptians to the Native Americans, from Chinese dynasties to African tribes, belief in the divine has been universal. It's not a bug in the human mind. It seems to be a fundamental part of how we process the world. That doesn't mean politics, love, or sports are mental illnesses. The abuse or misuse of something doesn't define its essence. Let's start with some facts. Studies consistently show that religious people, on average, have better mental health outcomes than non-religious people. They report higher levels of happiness, stronger social support, lower rates of depression, and even longer life expectancy. People who regularly attend religious services tend to have lower rates of substance abuse and suicide. Of course, this doesn't mean religious people are immune to mental health struggles, but it does challenge the idea that religion is inherently harmful to the mind. Think about that for a second. If religion was a mental illness, wouldn't we expect it to make people's lives worse, not better? Even in clinical psychology, religion is not classified as a disorder. In fact, the American Psychiatric Association and World Health Organization do not categorize religious belief as a pathology. You won't find belief in God or practicing Islam in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Now, it's true that some people do extreme or irrational things in the name of religion. But people also do extreme things in the name of politics, love, fame, or even sports. Now let's think about belief in God from a logical point of view. Imagine this. You walk into a room and see a book lying open on a table. When we see order, intention, structure, and meaning, we intuitively know there must be a mind behind it. These are big questions, and belief in God offers a rational answer, that the universe is the product of an intelligent cause, a necessary, eternal, all-powerful being. You may not agree with that conclusion, but that doesn't make it a mental illness. Let's look at this from another angle. If religion is a mental illness, then why has it played such a central role in every human civilization throughout history? There's never been a society without some form of religious belief. Now, some atheists argue that religion is just a survival mechanism, a kind of evolutionary glitch. And let's be honest. In Islam, for example, belief in God is not about blind faith. Hamza Tzortzis often speaks about this in terms of existential questions. And Dr. Zakir Naik, with his straightforward approach, reminds us again and again. True religion must agree with established science, not contradict it. Let's also talk about identity. When people call religion a mental illness, they ignore how deeply religion shapes culture, ethics, law, and family life. Look at history. Hospitals, universities, civil rights movements. Many of these were born out of religious conviction. So where does this idea come from, that religion is a mental illness? Sometimes it's tied to a shallow reading of psychology. In fact, some atheists believe in ideas that are also comforting. Other times, people equate religious experiences like prayer, peace, or spiritual visions with hallucinations. We don't call a sense of awe at a sunset a mental illness. Some critics also point to religious extremism. But extremism exists in every ideology, religious or not. So let's sum up. Religion is not a mental illness. You can disagree with religion. You can debate its claims. But calling it a mental illness isn't just wrong, it's lazy. So next time you hear someone say religion is a mental illness, ask them, what do you really mean by that? Are you willing to look at the evidence? Because belief in God is not the end of reason.